May I come in, sir?
Yes, come in.
Thank you, sir. Good afternoon, sirs. Sir. Thank you, sir.
You are computer science?
No, sir. Manufacturing engineer.
Very nice.
Yes, sir.
You must be the few who does manufacturing engineering.
Yes, sir. It's a very limited course, like offered at a very few selected colleges. Like BITS Pilani is one of them. College of Engineering Pune is another one. And we do have a couple of sister courses, for example. So IIT Delhi does have a course on industrial engineering and production engineering, but manufacturing very few colleges have.
So what's the difference between manufacturing engineering and industrial engineering?
So industrial engineering looks more at the perspective of shop floor production or shop floor engineering, whereas manufacturing engineering integrates the entire supply chain into it. So we are talking about pre-transportation, transportation, logistics management, warehouse management, and then the production planning and control. So,
And you did PSIR?
Political science and international relations is my optional, sir.
Right, and you've... where have you had most of your schooling?
So I've done my schooling from Kolkata.
All of it is in Kolkata?
Yes, sir.
So I'm going to ask you a question about the economy of West Bengal.
Yes, sir.
Can you walk us through what you believe are the challenges that the West Bengal economy faced before COVID? Structural economic challenges of the West Bengal economy.
Yes, sir. So there are a couple of challenges that the West Bengal economy faced before COVID. The first would be the non-industrial linkage of the state, sir, or the low level of industrial development. Second would be high agrarian output of the state, and primarily the state is agriculture dependent. The third would be the low rate of investment, public as well as private, in the sector, sir, state, sir. The fourth would be the low level of employment and low level of output generation. And the fifth major reason would be the disproportionate nature of jobs which is being taken up by the illegal immigrants, and this has become a socio-economic issue in the state, sir.
That's a good, impressive list. But a combination of all these factors, low industry, agricultural dependence, low investment,
Yes, sir.
low employment, means what? What is the implication for per capita income, for instance?
So for a state like West Bengal, which has a very high population, the per capita income is low, and the problem has been further compounded by the low level of output that the state has been generating. So.
Does it also imply high levels of poverty?
So West Bengal has done fairly well in the area of poverty because of a very socialistic nature of government that the state has had. But there are instances of poverty, especially pockets of poverty that we can call in urban areas, for example, Kolkata, sir.
So.
Thank you, sir.
You see, you are a manufacturing man. Now, can you tell me, basically when you talk of industry,
Yes, sir.
there are lots of things, for example, even software, this thing is really an industry.
Yes, sir.
But manufacturing, as you rightly said, is something much more.
Yes, sir.
Where are we on manufacturing in India today? What is it? Can you give me a few examples where we used to do it, manufacture, now we don't? Or where we were not manufacturing and we are now manufacturing?
So manufacturing is a sector where India is punching below its weight, and if we are talking in economic terms, it contributes to around 28% of our GVA, and whereas the actual potential has been highlighted to be around 38 or 39%. Sir. So we are underperforming in the sector, and an important area where we traditionally used to do good, especially if we are talking about the government sector. The government sector was good in manufacturing, like for example scooters and other cycles and watches. We had this in the government sector, but this has been privatized. And an area where we haven't had been good in manufacturing, but now we are rising is, for example, the semiconductor industry and defense goods under the defense like Make in India program. So these are in areas where we have actually grown as a manufacturing industry major, sir.
No, in manufacturing, let's say even even if you take the private sector or
Yes, sir.
public, both. So are there any things where we just stopped manufacturing what we used to do it earlier? See, there was a time
Yes, sir.
when imports were not allowed, in
Yes,
the
sir.
sense that they were very restricted. And whatever is it was being manufactured in India. Then it was opened up. So competition came.
Yes, sir.
And competition also destroys, you see,
Yes, sir.
certain activities because. So can you give a few examples in India where we were doing, then we were not doing because of such competition or imports from abroad?
So I can recall watches being an industry where India.
Oh, HMT
Yes, sir.
hoti thi, we used to all buy only HMT watches.
And then, sir, we had the system of music cassettes and CDs, and then a couple of companies, for example, the HMV, it shut its shops.
But that's worldwide, music का बहुत difference हो गया है.
Yes, sir.
Hardly anybody buys that R78.
The vinyl records, yes, sir.
In fact, you don't know how to do it. I've
Yes,
got
sir.
much, but that thing is not there.
Yes, sir.
पुराने रखे हुए हैं. Even tapes also, we use tape recorders and all that. That's all gone.
Yes,
Nobody does it anymore. Anyway, go ahead.
So I cannot recall any other major industry right now, but I'll read about it.
I think you're not getting,
Computers?
You're not getting the question.
Computers?
Sir is saying manufacturing where rest of the world is producing, but India closed down. Some manufacturing globally closed down.
Yes, sir.
Like cassettes.
Computers, for example.
Yes, sir.
Are we manufacturing any computers at present?
So the PLI scheme in electronics has invited interest aggregators
We
to.
were manufacturing our own computers for
Yes, sir.
long. HCL was doing it, Wipro was doing it, many companies were doing it.
Yes, sir.
Now, we just gave it up.
Thank you for pointing out, so I'll make it a point.
But cars are lots of cars. But
Yes, sir.
how much is local, how much is imported?
Yes, sir. We had a couple of joint ventures.
Anyway, tell me one thing. You are now going away from manufacturing and going into civil service.
Yes, sir.
And your choices are there. So, and you did political science and
That's my
so
options.
what interests, obviously you did it only for the exam in the sense that you are an engineer.
Yes, sir.
But what interests you there? Which part of it? Theory, practice? What interests you? International relations? What interests you?
So I like all the aspects of the subject, sir. But
Okay.
IR is something, the dynamic aspect of IR, international relations in practice is something that.
So let's give a few this thing.
Yes, sir.
A subject which you think you are good at in international relations.
Yes, sir.
Which in India, neighbors or West, East, or what is happening between, say, NATO and Warsaw Pact countries? What is it that interests you?
So I'm interested in a broad spectrum of international affairs that's going on, sir.
Like, give an example.
For example, sir, India and its neighbors, sir, then the current economic crisis in our neighbors, then the war-like situation that's developing in Europe, and the changing global order, especially the post-COVID order, sir. So these are a couple of areas where I have been reading articles and I have tried to form an opinion of things, sir.
So when was, do you have some idea about this, say, NATO and Warsaw Pact, and what are these?
So NATO is a security alliance which is led by USA and mainly has countries from the Western European region, sir. And there are certain.
Why do you say led by USA?
So,
I think they are all members.
yes, sir. The organization in itself follows the principle of equality, and but it was formed at the initiative of USA, and the second was that it was formed as to counter the rise of Soviet influence in the Eastern Europe, sir, to prevent the Western Europe from falling into the hands of communist governments, sir. So this was a major reason, sir. So why the US actually took lead in establishing NATO.
And what is the counter to NATO?
So
Was there any organization?
Yes, sir. In response to NATO, the USSR government formed the Warsaw Pact with the countries of Eastern Europe. Sir.
And what is the current situation now for both?
So, NATO has been expanding its frontiers, sir. Conventionally, it was centered around countries of Western Europe and around the Atlantic Ocean, Northern Atlantic Ocean, sir. But today, it has also included countries in the eastern parts of Europe, and given the current geopolitical realities, countries like Sweden and Finland are also planning on joining NATO.
Okay, that's NATO.
And about Warsaw Pact, sir, if I remember correctly, it was dissolved with the breakdown of the USSR in 1991, sir.
So there is no such thing as Warsaw Pact anymore.
As far as my knowledge goes, sir, there is nothing as such as Warsaw Pact right now, sir.
Okay, good.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, Warsaw Pact organization was never dissolved, it became dysfunctional.
Sorry, sir.
Member states were no longer the way they were before. Also, I think you mentioned your interest in overarching current issues of foreign policy.
Yes, sir.
Indian Prime Minister's visit recently to Europe, I believe you would have followed it?
Yes, sir, I have followed.
Okay, so this also involved the second India-Nordic summit meeting.
Yes, sir.
What are the areas where India and Nordic countries are building partnerships and why? What are the drivers?
So a couple of areas where India and the Nordic countries are building partnerships would include, first, the area of green energy, and especially with respect to green hydrogen and renewables. The second would be a migration and technology migration and people to people transfer pact that is being worked upon, sir. The third would be technology transfer, especially in the field of waste management and environmental friendly activities. And the fourth would, if I can recall correctly, was some discussions were held on climate financing, sir.
What are the reasons why this new interest? India is the only country that has such India-Nordic summit meeting.
Yes, sir.
US was another country which
Yes,
only once held a meeting like this, but they have not followed it up. So India is the only country. What are India's interests in pursuing such engagement?
So for a very long period of time, Indian foreign policy was limited to the stalwarts of Europe like France, Germany, Italy, UK. But given the current geopolitical realities as well as the current challenges faced in the environment sector or the climate change sector, sir, we feel that India, if collaborates with the Nordic countries, gives a win-win situation for both of them, sir. India gets benefited in renewables, and India can benefit in how these countries have done well in the human development indexes. At the same time, sir, these countries can utilize Indian talents as some other countries of the West have utilized.
Arctic has anything to do with it?
Yes, sir. Cooperation along the Arctic. A couple of members of the Nordic countries are members of the Arctic Council as well. And Arctic being the next major frontier of global interest, India is actually collaborating with them as well, sir.
Should India be doing line of credits and assisting other countries, sending humanitarian assistance, when we in some areas are worse than sub-Saharan Africa inside our own country?
So, India has always believed in the system of Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam, the world is a family, and it is based on these principles that we extend line of credit or humanitarian assistance to countries in conflict. And this has been widely appreciated even at a country level and as an important clause to India's rise in the global institutional agencies, sir. And about issues inside India, sir, wherein there are claims that India is performing poorly compared to even sub-Saharan countries, sir. So there exists a ranking bias against India in major international institutions, and The Economic Survey 2019-20 has also highlighted this, sir. So we aren't doing as bad as it is being portrayed by the some international
You
groups.
mentioned of some international agencies
Yes, sir.
portraying India badly.
Yes, sir.
Recently, 3 reports I can talk of. Religious Freedom Report,
Yes, sir.
which talks about human rights.
Yes, sir.
Press Freedom Report again puts India 150th.
Yes, sir.
And then, of course, what was that? WHO
WHO reports.
has come out with figures 10 times.
Yes, sir.
What should India do? Ignore these or counter these? If counter, how to counter these?
Sir, India should be taking a two-stepped approach in this, sir. On the international front, we should be countering this and create a narrative which highlights the flaws that that these organizations have used in calculating these indexes, sir. Especially the WHO and the Press Freedom Index. And internally, we should actually be ignoring these reports and relying more on locally available data to come to a policy.
Okay, my last question to you. There is a whole debate these days of India becoming the Vishwa Guru.
Yes, sir.
None of our universities even are ranked among the top 500 in the world.
Yes, sir.
Should we be making that kind of claim of becoming the Vishwa Guru?
So I remember reading a report, I do not remember the ranking, wherein Jadavpur University and the Indian Institute of Sciences was ranked very high, and they have shown a very incremental
Unless you're
increase.
talking of our own national ranking.
I'm unable to recall the name of the report, sir.
Among Asian universities, IISC, JNU, BHU, all figure in the first 100 or 200.
Yes, sir.
But among Asian universities, not the world.
In global ranking, we don't have a university which enters the top 500.
So I'll update my knowledge on this, sir.
No. Assuming that what I'm saying is true,
Yes, sir.
Ah,
the question actually was, should we be aiming to become Vishwa Guru when nobody at all thinks we are serious scholars in this country?
So India, under its new educational policy, has made step to which has highlighted a major policy goal wherein we aspire to become one of the top ranked educational centers in the world with Indian institutes in the top
Do you know
tier,
that
sir.
earlier 3 policy or documents said exactly the same thing?
Every country.
From 1963, the first policy came.
Yes, sir.
All policy documents have said the same thing.
I wasn't unaware of this, sir, but
करेंगे, अरे कब करेंगे? सवाल ये है.
sir, I'm sure in the very recent future will become. And about the Vishwa Guru thing, sir, it's education is a factor, sir, but then there are other ways in which India is also contributing, sir. We see Indian technology, Indian talent, which is being all over the world, has been driving changes from multinational corporations to governments.
Oh, you have to
Different-
leave the country to be intelligent or be recognized as intelligent.
No, sir.
That's what the NEET, what is his name? JNU student who got Nobel Prize in Economics.
Abhijit Banerjee.
Abhijit Banerjee said that on national NDTV. If he had not gone to MIT, he would have never received a Nobel Prize.
Maybe a couple of years back things weren't that good, but then the government is in the past couple of years has taken a couple of steps to improve the research and the academic environment in the country, although much more needs to be done at the same time.
Thank
sir.
you.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You've been in the Students' Union.
Yes, sir.
What were the highlights of your term there in the Students' Union? What constructive things you could do?
Yes, sir. So,
But how did the students, by and large, how did they gain by your being there?
yes, sir. So, BITS Pilani Students' Union is an apolitical student union wherein we are not affiliated to any political parties. So,
Nobody is saying that. I am saying, how did the students gain by your presence in the union?
so
And what motivated you to become part of the union? Nobody must have forced you.
no, sir.
What motivated you to be part of the union, and how did the students benefit by your being there?
So talking about my motivation, I am someone who likes to take leadership positions, and I am someone who likes to work within the people, sir. So this has actually pushed me to contest elections, which I won 2 times consecutively. And
Okay.
about the steps that I have taken, in the first year of my candidature, sir, I remember initiating a proposal wherein there was this discriminatory system of against the girl students, wherein the girl students had an entry time at 11 p.m. but the boys did not have this. So we pushed for a uniformity in this, sir. And the in time for girls was abolished, which gave them 24-hour access to libraries and the cafeterias. And there was this another proposal which I spearheaded, was creation of a safety and medical advisory council. And this council was to work especially during the fests and during issues like, for example, heat strokes and also. So these are the two key changes that I've taken. Other than that, as a council, we were involved in like making the budget of our cultural fest and our technical fest, sir, and the merchandising, which was under my direct control, sir.
Okay. Now tell me, maintaining details of expenditure, cash handling, and these things, what do you know about it? What is your expertise?
So, I would like to present a clarification, sir. As a member of student council, I wasn't involved in cash handling. This was done by a separate body called ARC. So they were actually involved in cash handling. So our duty was to just present the budget and pass the budget or request for additional funds from the institution, sir. So we weren't involved in the keeping of book records, sir.
Okay. So this intrinsic desire to lead men,
Yes, sir.
in the various examples that you gave, how do you fulfill that in the civil service? Because unions in the civil service of whatever kind, they are banned,
Yes, sir.
totally banned.
Yes, sir.
How do you fulfill your intrinsic desire to do that?
So there are two levels of this leadership that I can exercise as a civil servant, sir. The first level would be leading my colleagues and leading my juniors in implementing the policies at the ground level, sir. Frequent visits and then meetings and getting the officials to the people and presenting a plan of tasks. This would be an activity. And the second would be a more of a personal level wherein I can take up my hobby of blogging, sir, which is a waste collecting activity. This can be taken up on a Jan Yatra type of event, and the public can be involved in cleanliness, sir. So it's both at a personal level as well as on a professional level that I can lead people, sir.
So you'll be organizing collection of junk in the district. Is that what you mean?
Sir, this is an example that I have.
You tell me something which you would be doing or you would like to get involved with.
Yes, sir. Blogging being my hobby, and having done blogging, this is an area wherein I can work with more people, with citizens, with school-going children, and this would contribute in Swachhata of the places, sir.
School-going children, practically batao na. You are posted in a district, you have a certain jurisdiction to function.
Yes, sir.
What will you do? You will go to the school, you will gather the children, give them a motivational talk, or what? What are the specifics of your effort?
So, for example, if I'm talking about the school children, sir, I can organize seminars with the help of the school administration and inter-school activities which can be addressed by me. We can talk about general issues. We can talk about how school children can be the flag bearers of peace and cleanliness in the area, sir. And then
you mean how are you guaranteeing the fact that the school authorities will agree to these kind of suggestions from you? Why, he is a officer, he is a SDM posted in this area.
yes, sir.
Why do you think the principal or the vice principal will agree ki all my girls of class 9 and 10, they will all engage in this, they will all do this because the SDM is saying so? What makes you confident? They can say, sorry sir, we have too many things to cover. So इस सब में हम time नहीं दे पाएंगे. Exams are closed.
So this is always a possibility of being turned down.
Then
again,
how do you do? Because that is your inner self is going to get hurt. How dare?
No, sir, it's not.
Of course. But you being posted and in your jurisdiction, because they are authority unto themselves. You may be SDM.
Yes, sir.
That person is the principal and the vice principal of the school.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So what I have another idea in my mind, so if I may be allowed to present. So there's this system called activity-based learning, wherein the students have to take up a community activity or a social activity, and this would give them some credits for their educational purpose, sir. So such an activity can be integrated. For example, sir,
that is okay, but to convince a particular school, they will say कि सर आपने ये कहाँ किया है, ज़रा हमको बता दीजिए, हम भी अपनी टीम भेजेंगे, देख आएंगे कि how is it translating on the ground.
Yes, sir.
Unless you have done something on the ground,
Yes, sir.
how can you convince a large body of people to do something which you have not done anywhere else in the vicinity?
So then probably the first step of, like, for example, the plogging activity that I'm talking about, the first step could be done with the office of with the officers or the colleagues as well, sir. Like, for example, police often indulge in jogging or drives or cleanliness drives, sir. This can also be taken by the collectorate, sir. All the officers of the collectorate are indulging in some sort of cleanliness or an environment activity, and when schools see that the SDM himself is doing some activities with his officers, the schools and the students and the parents, they'll be motivated.
That kind of thing can happen.
Yes, sir.
You can get your own people of the collectorate and others.
Yes, sir.
To do this.
Yes, sir.
It would depend on how many petitions, signed or unsigned,
Yes,
will
sir.
find their way to the higher ups. That one doesn't know, but you should think about it at least 2 times. Discussing across the table is one thing, doing something on the ground is another. Tell me very briefly, just this supply chain waste management you're talking about. You have mentioned all these things.
Yes, sir.
Tell me something.
So, can I ask a clarifying question? Like,
You have written
Yes, sir.
analytical study of waste management and steel supply chain.
Yes, sir. Yes,
This
sir.
is what you have written.
Yes, sir.
I'm only asking you to explain this in brief.
Yes, sir. So the analytical study of steel supply chain was conducted as an undergraduate thesis for the degree requirements, sir. And I studied 110 research
I'm
papers.
just asking you, what is it? That's all.
So it's a research-based study wherein I study the different facets of the steel supply chain. So
I'm just asking, how does it work according to your study? Steel industry में waste management.
yes, sir.
What are the specifics of this
Yes, sir.
which you would like to translate on the ground?
So mainly 2 types of waste can be classified. 2 major type of waste. One is the logistics waste. Other is the production waste, sir. So production
What
waste.
is logistic based?
So
Waste.
So logistic waste talks about the losses or the waste that have been generated due to the entire logistical supply chain, sir. The inbound transportation, the outbound transportation.
It's steel.
Yes, sir.
Steel.
Yes, sir.
What is the wastage in its transportation?
So wastage, we can talk about wastage of overworking, sir, or wastage of error proofing. Then we can talk about waste which happened due to faulty transportation mechanics, sir. And we can also talk about ore losses, sir.
No, certain 100 tons of steel
Yes, sir.
is to be transported from place X to Y.
Yes, sir.
Where is the wastage?
So
One just wants to understand,
yes, sir.
in what way is this steel
Yes, sir.
going to be wasted?
So
You're carrying certain metric tons
yes, sir.
of steel
Yes, sir.
and you're talking about the steel waste management.
Yes, sir.
So what is getting wasted?
So directly we can see waste due to the transportation mixer, and indirect waste would be due to waste of costs and waste of other waste of supply chain. So if allowed to, I can present an example to this, sir.
No, it's okay. I've understood what
Thank
you
you, sir.
mean.
Thank you, sir.
You were born in Champaran, East Champaran.
Yes, sir.
Champaran rings a tone
Yes, sir.
of freedom struggle.
Yes, sir.
You must be anticipating this question also. What was the struggle like there? Satyagraha there,
Yes.
like.
So the Champaran Satyagraha of 1918 was India's first and Gandhiji's first Satyagraha in India, and it was against the exploitative Teen Kathia system of indigo plantation, and
Then?
yes, sir. And An important highlight of this struggle was the fact that people were directly involved in a system of passive resistance against the British, and ultimately the Britishers and the indigo planters left the region.
Like a civil disobedience movement. Are you
Yes.
saying that?
Yes, sir.
So I'll take you to another level now. You have studied political science also.
Yes, sir.
So would you Gandhiji led this civil disobedience movement. Gandhiji was also described as an anarchist, a peaceful anarchist.
Yes, sir.
So viewed in the background of what happened in Champaran and subsequent satyagrahas, how would you explain Gandhiji as a pacifist anarchist? Have you heard of anarchism as a theory? No?
Yes, sir.
So he's supposed to be he's known to be a pacifist anarchist.
Yes, sir.
Pacifism is peaceful.
Yes, sir.
Anarchist.
So the crux of the reason why Gandhiji is called as a pacifist anarchist is because Gandhiji viewed the state as a modern state as an exploitative Western colonial power, sir. And given the fact that the British were actually exploiting the Indians without giving Indians the due share in administration and economy, Gandhiji, via his passive resistance and the other means like non-cooperation, civil disobedience, stressed on reducing interaction with the Britishers in the administrative and economic front, sir.
So anarchism basically is a voice against exploitation by the state.
Yes, sir.
And Gandhiji was inspired by another pacifist anarchist. Can you recount his name?
So,
Of Russia.
Sir Leo Tolstoy.
Yeah, okay. What book did Leo Tolstoy write? Where is his thoughts? Where is thoughts incorporated?
So I am unable
War
to
and
recall.
Peace.
War and Peace. Yes,
Okay.
sir.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
Achha, now, two words are very frequently referred to.
Yes, sir.
Militancy, militant, and a terrorist. Is militancy and terrorism the same?
Yes, sir.
What is a militant and what is a terrorism? Are they the same? And if they are different, how they are different? I've understood the question.
Yes, sir. Sir, can I think about it for a couple of
yeah.
seconds?
I was hearing that militants itne hue terrorists. So what is the difference, if at all? Or are they same?
So militancy is a subset of terrorism, sir. Terrorism is
Militancy is a subset of terrorism.
Yes, sir. Yeah. So terrorism is an umbrella concept wherein certain fringe elements or certain elements use the threat of force or violence to intimidate people for achieving certain objectives, sir. Militancy is a form of terrorism which actually talks about certain ideology, especially political or cultural religious ideology, which influences a particular distinct set of behavior, and this behavior is transferred in violence against the state or against the citizens, sir.
How far and to what extent is militancy similar to anarchism?
So militancy is very similar to anarchism, given the fact that the core objective is against the state establishment, sir.
So terrorism is entirely different. Huh? So then how did you say that it's a subset of terrorism?
So my understanding of militancy as a subset of terrorism stems from the fact that both use very similar methods of organization, carrying out
Or
attacks.
it's the other way around. Terrorism is a subset of militancy.
I'm sorry, sir. I would actually like to change my opinion on that. Terrorism would actually would rightly be.
So you agreed to change your opinion. Okay. So bye.
Thank you, sir.
Okay.